Maweni we baba silale maweni we baba silale maweni we baba yeah baba silale maweni we baba silale maweni we baba silale maweni we baba silale maweni we baba yeah baba silale maweni baba silale maweni sink homeless moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. Homeless, moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. And we are homeless, moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. And we are homeless, moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. Inhlisiyo yami, inhlisiyo yami, ambulela makaza, ambulele mina, inhlisiyo yami, somandla senbulele mina, amakaza.
Buyela mama buyela mama buyela mama buyela mama buyela
The town of Sabi is not unlike hundreds of small African villages. The main street might have a pizza parlor, a gas station, a sports bar, a few restaurants, and definitely a street vendor or two. Sabi is located in a lush green area of South Africa with many beautiful waterfalls and subtropical vegetation. If you continue on through the village a couple of kilometers down the road and look up on the hill, you'll see the township of Simili. Townships were a creation of the apartheid government, a place where all blacks were forced to move to. After the AIDS crisis began, it became apparent that the job of raising the children was being left to the grandmothers, women who, in the later years of their life, were now taking on the job of parenting 1, 2, 3, or more of their children's children. This huge undertaking gradually began to be noticed by the world.
I had lived over in Sabi, South Africa for 4 years, and when I returned to Canada in 2005, I learned about the Stephen Lewis Foundation and their Grandmothers Campaign, and I thought to myself, I know some grandmothers who are African, and this sounds like a project just waiting to happen. So I floated the idea past a few of my friends, and they were all very keen. And I happened to be on my way back to South Africa for a visit, and I spoke to Reverend Ginny Cormack and asked her if she would consider being our volunteer administrator over there. And she agreed to that, and then introduced me to Ruth Magagula, who was really in contact with a lot of these Gogos, and she lived out in Simili township of Sabi.
Soon a steering committee was struck and plans were made for an event to launch the newly formed organization. For this launch event, a documentary was shown called The Great Granny Revolution. It was directed by Brenda Rooney, who attended the launch, and is about a group of women in Wakefield, Quebec, with a similar project. One of the first subgroups to be formed was the Handicrafts group, who took on the task of creating products that could be sold at local craft fairs and events. They started knitting, sewing, cutting, gluing, and beading to produce a wide variety of saleable items. In Sabi, Ginny Cormack, along with Ruth Magagula and later Millie Chilawani, organized the grandmothers into a group called Sitabo Gogo, Help a Grandmother in Zulu. They identified the most vulnerable Gogos and addressed their urgent needs, which might be food, medical attention, school fees, or simply a decent mattress to sleep on. Group activities and sports were organized, often led by a local physiotherapist. This encouraged the Gogos to keep moving and remain active. Some activities were designed to encourage social interaction and to make connections between the Gogos. Some of the Gogos even had the opportunity to participate in the South African Golden Games, where they competed on a regional and national level. Special outings for the Gogos were also arranged. Since many of them had never been swimming before, when they visited a local swimming pool, bathing suits had to be borrowed, and a hilarious fashion show ensued. They were fascinated when they visited a local airport. One Gogo said, "I am 85 years old, and never in my whole life have I seen such a thing as this." They also visited the radio station of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. Some days are focused on making crafts, and beadwork is a popular item in South Africa. Some products would then be sold at local craft markets, and the Gogos were able to sell some of their own handiwork. Some of the Vernon grandmothers have had an opportunity to visit Sabi to meet the Gogos. Beverly Barling used her visit to teach sewing skills.
I went to South Africa a year or two after we started Grannies a Gogo. I was working on a craft component, and we did some quilting and some sewing of garments and some knitting as well. So they made bags, they made wraparound skirts and some aprons, and then they asked me if I would teach them how to make slippers.
Gardening helped break new ground in every sense of that phrase. Working together as a group, it provided some very needed nutrition with a common and tangible goal, and was an important step in creating a sense of community. In order to strengthen the connection between the Vernon Grannies and South African Gogos, the members were paired up in letter-writing partnerships. The goal was to provide emotional support to the African Gogos by writing every few months. Many of the Gogos do not speak English, so they enlist friends or grandchildren to help translate.
I've been writing to my partner Martina since about 2008, and I've actually had the opportunity to go to South Africa a couple of times, and I've met her, which was a really incredible experience. She's in her early 80s, probably 83 or 84 now, and the first time I went, she was looking after her grandson who was just finishing up high school. Her son had recently died. And when I went back 2 years later, her daughter had also passed away, and she was looking after a few more grandchildren as well as her great-grandchild while the mother continued her education. And so at this point she's raising grandchildren and great-grandchildren on her single pension, which is around $100 a month. I think the group really helps to support her and she takes advantage of the monthly food parcels as well.
Ellen is another member of Gogo, who is thrilled to receive letters from Canada. She's looking after 3 orphaned grandchildren, including her 6-year-old granddaughter, who is HIV positive, likely through mother-to-child transmission. Emma also comes to Gogo daily. She says, "It makes my brain happy." 2 of her 3 children died in infancy, and her son died of AIDS in his 40s. She contributes to the group by gardening, knitting, and helping wherever she can. There have been a number of private initiatives that have connected the communities of Vernon and Sabi, such as the Vernon Secondary School sewing class, who donated their baby quilts. A few months later, they were delivered to some delighted recipients in Sabi. The Gogos were instructed in the art of English paper piecing and created quilt blocks. These were then returned to Vernon and used to create pillows, placemats, and other items that were sold. Gradually, through working, playing, and praying together, the women became stronger, and instead of a number of scattered women struggling on their own, they were developing into a very cohesive group, not just caring for their children, but caring for each other as well. In Vernon, the Grannies try to keep the fun in fundraising. A kitchen safari was held with guests traveling between several homes to sample South African cuisine. At a painting party, participants produced a frame-worthy work of art. Potlucks have raised funds, provided entertainment, and served up some delicious food. Photo contests were held, and the winning photos made into calendars. Crafts are sold at the farmers market and other local markets and events. Presentations are made to other organizations. Travelogues continue to grow in popularity. The Grannies have made a real connection with the Vernon community, who continue to support their fundraising efforts. In 2011, Vicky and Miriam Bryant were living in Belgium, close to retirement, with a goal of putting their energies to helping disadvantaged people, particularly women. An internet search led them to the Grannies of Gogo website, and a few emails later, they were packing their belongings for Sabi. Shortly after, Ginny Cormack had to move, and Vicky and Miriam took over the administration. They continue to focus on the most vulnerable people in the community, helping wherever they can. They provided much-needed expertise with government bureaucracy, which is needed, allowing women to receive pension and children to enroll in school. They continue the monthly food parcels and buy food in bulk to resell to the Gogos for huge savings. Their weekly trips to the supermarket are an adventure in shopping. Regular blood sugar testing and blood pressure checking continues, and the Gogos take part in a hot meal once a week. Several times a week, they cook up a big pot of soup, transport it in the back of their bucky, and distribute it to the needy in their community. They've started an after-school program, a place where students can get extra help on their schoolwork. Most of them will be unlikely to get the help at home, and without it will not succeed in school. Last year they had well over 50 students coming. They also receive bread and soup when they arrive. In the past 10 years, this dedicated group of grannies from Vernon has raised over $133,000. This has helped provide much-needed food, medical supplies, activities. And with very little overhead, almost all proceeds are sent to Sabi. Previously, The members of Gogo were living in isolation and despair with their problems. Through their relationship with Grannies Gogo in Vernon, Canada, there's a new sense of hope for the future, adding a zest for life and a sense of joy and community with each other. Today, the Gogos live together, play together, work together, and are no longer facing their hardships alone.
Great. May God bless you all, and also in Canada for buying everything which is going to help us here in South Africa. Thank you.